drink for my troubles, another cold cigarette. I'm not the type, but I'll take a bet that flame will keep burning on as I go chasing the dawn, as I go chasing the dawn, as I go chasing the dawn. Another stroll in the shadows, one more familiar street. It seems that history is bound to repeat. That's how my destiny's drawn. Just when the story is shifting, turns out it's too good to last. Maybe I just can't escape from the past as I go chasing the dawn. Why don't you just release me and go your separate way? My heart has nothing left to give away. Another drink for my troubles.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am your host, Halsey English, and this is Kinetic Action, Episode 2. So hopefully this is going to work out better than it did yesterday because I had some technical issues which I believe have all been resolved. If you are watching, please like and subscribe on YouTube or Twitter. Please post comments. If you want to support my work, in the description are my Patreon link and my Subscribestar link. Also, you can use the Super Chat feature if you have any questions about the stuff that we're going to talk about. So, first, I think it's important that we talk about Lebanon. So, let's get right into it. President Trump has tweeted out that the war in Lebanon is over for now. He posted on Truth Social that he had productive calls with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hezbollah. He claims Netanyahu agreed there will be no troops in Beirut, and if there are any on their way, they will now be called back. Hezbollah told President Trump all shooting will stop. A mutual non-aggression ceasefire has been agreed to, according to President Trump. That being said, in an interview with NBC News, he stated that with Iran, even if there's no deal, he isn't in a rush to return to fighting. When asked about Iran suspending talks with the U.S., he said, "I think we've been talking too much if you want to know the truth. I think going silent would be very good, and that could be for a long time. It doesn't mean we're not going to go and start dropping bombs over there." So, also, a senior Hezbollah official, Hassan Fadlallah, revealed that U.S. mediators proposed a deal under which Hezbollah would halt its attacks while Israel would refrain from striking Beirut and the Dihia district. According to Fadlallah, Hezbollah and Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri rejected the proposal, insisting instead on a full ceasefire as a precondition to any agreement. He also stated that Hezbollah opposes a return to the situation that existed before March 2nd and rejected any arrangement that would allow Israel continued freedom of military action in Lebanon. So, that being said, let me give you my $1 million take on all of this. So, if I want to give President Trump credit, he's playing the game the way that it needs to be played. He's allowing for Hezbollah and Iran to expose themselves. He's offered them every off-ramp that he possibly could to get out of the conflict. And if they don't take those off-ramps, he's going to reopen military action. The other half is that he's possibly being very naive, in that he believes that the threat of American power is enough to get a group like Hezbollah or a country like Iran to come to the table and make a deal that they wouldn't normally make. I don't believe that that's going to happen. I don't believe there's any deal to be had. I think that if you look at the different avenues that Iran has suggested in order to get to a full ceasefire, they have requested repeatedly, and they've never changed their tune on this. They've requested repeatedly that, one, they will end the war immediately, and American military bases in and around the Middle East will all be evacuated and redeployed outside of the Middle East. That Israel will call a complete ceasefire and retreat from both Hezbollah and Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. That America will give $300 billion in reconstruction funds to Iran. That the war in Lebanon will be considered completely over, and there will be a complete, you can call it a surrender, you can call it a peace deal, whatever, with Hezbollah, that there will be no more military incursions from Israel into Lebanon or into Gaza. And all Iranian funds and sanctions the funds will be returned, the sanctions will be lifted, and Iran will be able to conduct business any way that it sees fit. And if all of those conditions for Iran are met, then Iran says that in 60 days they'll begin discussing their nuclear program. But of that nuclear program, enriching uranium is a sovereign right of nations. Therefore, they will not relinquish it under any conditions. So there's no possibility, none, that President Trump can accept these terms, and he knows he can't accept it. In fact, the discussion has been about Iran's 60% uranium stockpile, which they supposedly have 400 kilograms of. But in order to discuss that uranium, it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the nuclear process and what it means. Because 60% uranium, while closer to a nuclear bomb, anything above 3.75% enriched is 70% there in the first place. If they're not willing to talk about their entire stockpile of enriched uranium, then it's not worth discussing in the first place. I was going to get to that in a minute, reversely, but now that you brought it up, what's going on between Trump and Netanyahu? It's pure theater. You have to be in this game for a little bit to understand where the source came from, what was said, and now what's been said publicly. Number one, the idea that Trump freaked out on Bibi and started calling him names and telling him he was fucking crazy and all of that came from Barack Ravid. Barack Ravid is the Axios reporter that works at the White House. Number one, Barack Ravid has reported this same conversation that Trump has had with Bibi 5 or 6 times, that Biden had with Bibi a few times. Like, this is his thing, is to write that there was this heated exchange and Bibi was put in his place. It's just not true. And both leaders have come out at this point and said that it wasn't true. What they said was it got a little heated because Trump wanted Bibi to agree not to hit Beirut, and Bibi wanted Trump to basically mind his own business, because whatever was going to happen only after Israel saw Hezbollah stop shooting rockets. They've shot about 100 rockets into Israel in the last 2 days. So is there a difference of opinion between the two? Probably to some extent. But I think whenever you see these big dusts up between Trump and Netanyahu, I think you're looking at theater. I think you're looking at them putting it out there so A, that the paid shills on social media will come out and seize on it, and B, that it'll embolden the enemies in Iran, the enemies in Lebanon to come out and show themselves more, because they're thinking that they're winning this whole thing. So I wouldn't notice like any level of concern about it. In fact, they supposedly have spoken again since then. Israel is still doing exactly what he said he was going to do. So I don't see this being even true, let alone something to be concerned about. Let's move on to the next topic, which I got into a bit yesterday, but I found a bit interesting. I'll read the slides and then I'll go into analysis a little bit, because Ukraine and Russia have been really going at it over the last few weeks, actually a few months, but they had a bit of a ceasefire in between there. Russia and Ukraine Russia's been bombing Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine. Ukraine has been hitting Russian assets. Russia shot a drone and hit Bulgaria recently, which they then blamed on Ukraine for commandeering the drone and sending it over there as a false flag. I mean, it's in a mess. So Zelensky gave an interview to Face the Nation the other day, and it was a pretty wide ranging interview. And afterwards, he took to X.com to kind of relay the 5 talking points of the interview. And I found all of them very interesting. So I'll read them first, and then we'll go into it. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky, in an interview with Face the Nation, spoke about a wide array of topics on the current conflict with Russia and how Ukraine could be beneficial to other countries and how other countries could be useful in pursuing a peace deal with Russia. In a series of posts to X, Zelensky wrote the following. Post 1. We're trying to intercept all Russian drones, even when some of them are going in the direction of other countries like Romania, Moldova, Poland, and the Baltic states. If we can't, we immediately notify our partners and try to help them. Russia uses drones to pressure NATO countries and gauge the reaction. This is their typical message. Don't help Ukraine. I think there should be a stronger response from a united NATO. Putin is comparing this reaction to what he saw in previous years, and he's also testing air defenses of NATO countries bordering Russia or Belarus. Are they capable of intercepting all the missile and drones? It's to be asked. There could not be enough anti-ballistic missile production in the United States, and this could lead to a crisis in different parts of the world. Russia is ramping up its internal production of ballistic missiles. I sent a letter to the White House and to the U.S. Congress. I hope they will understand and respond. 60 to 65 anti-ballistic missiles per month compared to the current challenges is nothing. It's no secret, and Russia knows this. We need to expand the production. I asked the previous U.S. administration, and I'm asking today's administration to give Ukraine licenses to produce Patriot missiles. We can increase the production of Patriot missiles. This will help us. This will help the Middle East and any other country that the United States decides to help. Until we produce a European anti-ballistic missile system, we will need to support from the United States. Beginning in December 2025, Russia started to lose the initiative on the battlefield. In January 2026, I told our American partners, I think there's a window for negotiations because each month Russia will be losing more and more troops. Now they can't occupy more territory in a month than we liberate. Therefore, I think we need to find a diplomatic way to sit down and talk before next winter. But this depends on internal pressure on Putin from his society as well as American and European sanctions pressure on Russia. Who could represent Europe in the negotiations? There's an E3 format, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. I don't know if this is the best format, but I think these countries could be negotiators from Europe. We also have reliable Nordic partners. Turkey always wanted to be a mediator, and we had some success in bringing back our POWs with their help. Who will represent Europe after all? It's up to Ukraine and Europe to decide, but no less important is that Russia must be ready for dialogue and a European presence. Lifting sanctions means helping Russian soldiers by helping the Russian defense industry. After some sanctions were eased, we did not see any surprises like lower global prices for oil, gas, or diesel, because the share of Russian oil accounts for only 5% of global supply. How can it make a difference? So lifting sanctions is not about that. I think it's about building dialogue with the Russians. But it's not the right approach because they don't understand words or empathy and see it as a sign of weakness. We need to be strong and impose more sanctions on them. We wanted to conclude the first drone deal with the United States. The U.S. wanted to test all types of our drones. We agreed to the way they wanted to test, train with, and use our systems in the air, on land, and at sea. But we still don't have a bilateral drone deal, a big framework document. The drone deals we have are with some countries in the Middle East and Europe, and now we're preparing a big drone deal with the EU. I hope we will reach the same agreement with our American partners. I count on it. American companies have advanced AI technologies we don't have. In turn, we have many things they don't have due to our extensive experience on the battlefield. I think this cooperation can be huge, the most powerful of its kind in the world. We need to negotiate, not just talk about it. Take the necessary steps and do it as quickly as possible. For this, we need President Trump to say yes. Okay, let's go through this stuff. Hold on. Yes, that's funny. Bibi owns Trump. That's so ridiculous. I don't even know where to begin with it. But where it says that they're trying to intercept all of Russian drones and some of them are going towards Europe. So I don't think that it's a surprise that some of them go towards Europe. They're right now on the borders of all the European countries, and they've been shooting them at Ukraine nonstop. But Putin is not seeing a situation where the drone warfare has has been able to be intercepted in a real significant way. And I think that what Putin is doing a lot of times with the drones is he's testing them against Western systems because he knows that Ukraine has gotten a lot of Western systems. So will it turn into something bigger? I don't know. But I don't think that Ukraine is going to be able to get much more drone and missile defense than they already get from the US and from Europe. I think that the idea that America would give Ukraine a license to build Patriot missiles is practically insane. I don't think that Zelensky has any prayer whatsoever of that happening because there's absolutely no guarantee, and there's a probably high likelihood that if Patriot missiles started being produced in Ukraine, they would find their way to Russia, they would find their way to China, they would find their way to Iran, and those Patriot missiles would be used to develop the next generation anti-missile defense from those countries. I don't think that Ukraine has in any way, shape, or form shown that they can be trusted with these kind of things because their government is too corrupt. I don't believe that Trump's even considering it. And I think that if Zelensky thinks they are, I think he's kind of nuts. They're saying that Russia is losing on the battlefield and now is the time for negotiations, but they want Europe involved. This has been a loser so far. So I don't know why Putin would change his mind right now and begin negotiating with the United States, Ukraine, and Europe. So Europe has been absolutely steadfast in the idea that they will not stop defending Ukraine, and Ukraine will not stop fighting until Russia has been defeated. I don't believe that Europe wants any negotiations, nor do I think that they're going to contribute anything to the negotiations except for trying to convince Putin to surrender, which he will not do. Trump has already outlined the way that a specific peace deal would look. It was basically accepted by Ukraine and Russia, and then Europe stepped in and said that Ukraine better not accept the deal. I think any end peace deal is going to wind up looking very similar to that framework. So I don't see how the Europeans would be, would be able to help. Let's see. This is true no matter what because money is fungible. So if you lift sanctions on Russia, it's absolutely going to help the Russian defense industry. Even if they claim it's for other purposes, then the purposes used for that money are just going to be shifted from the sanctions relief. I don't think that sanctions relief in any way, shape, or form is going to help the negotiations go forward. In fact, it'll probably make the conflict even worse. I think he's actually right about that. Zelensky claims now, again, this has not been shown with battle data. It's just been claimed by Ukraine, and some European countries have contributed to backing it up. I don't believe that Ukraine is creating some of the best drones on the world. They're claiming that their drones are more effective than Israeli or American drones in fighting the different frameworks that they're fighting against, and that they want the Western alliance of countries, in order to keep going forward, instead of shooting $10 million missiles at incoming drones or incoming missiles, that they use Ukrainian drones in missile defense. I think that if that were a possibility, that Trump would have already asked for it. If there is no drone deal, it's most likely because they just don't want the deal itself. So I'm trying to follow this little argument in the chat. I don't really accept the argument that America has no interest whatsoever in this war. Iran has been fighting against America and Israel since 1979. They've killed hundreds of Americans. They fund terrorism all over the world, especially against Americans and Israelis. So I think that Trump wants to make sure they don't get a nuclear weapon. And I don't think it's because he's afraid they're going to use the nuclear weapon on Israel. I think what he's actually afraid of is a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. And that would be terrifying. He's not afraid that they're going to all of a sudden develop the technology to make miniaturized tests and shoot a missile at Israel, with all of the likelihood that it'll probably be shot down. I think what they're afraid of is that if Iran does any form of nuclear test, it's going to take a nanosecond before Saudi Arabia and the UAE immediately start pursuing their own nuclear program, and they're not under sanctions. They're not under like any kind of obligation to not just go buy one. And they would find plenty of willing sellers in Pakistan or in North Korea or in any of those places for the right amount of money, and they have the money. So I think that the idea is not that anyone's particularly afraid of Iran using a nuclear bomb. They're afraid of an arms race in one of the most volatile parts of the world that a good portion of the planet gets their energy from. So I don't believe the idea that America is just fighting Israel's war. And if they were, why would they stop? Like it seriously, like I understand the argument from some people that they say, "Oh, look, this is Israel's war and America's fighting it." If that were the case, why did they stop now twice? The first time they stopped after Midnight Hammer, the second time they stopped after a couple weeks of Epic Fury, and no lasting damage has been done, and the mullahs are still in place. So if Israel really controlled America, don't you believe that America would be still bombing the shit out of Iran every day? Like, why would they all of a sudden stop and start telling Israel it was time to stop and stop Israel from going in and taking out Hezbollah, which is the financial arm of Iran? And all of a sudden it's an Israeli problem, yet it's America that's stepping in to stop so they can get into weird kind of negotiations. I don't buy it. But let's get into the last topic, because this is one of those things, like, I'm going to try to do this on each show and hopefully it'll work out for the better. But I want to debunk the X.com woke right to news cycle, because it seems that what happens is that some Pakistani or some completely out there person puts a theory out there on something that is completely mundane, and they get very bombastic with it and they start suggesting it, and then you get the Tucker Carlsons and the Alex Joneses and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Thomas Masseys who also pick up on it. And I don't believe these people are too stupid to realize what they're saying is false. I think they're playing to an audience that is too stupid to realize what they're saying is false, and they're fine with that. I think that even Massey at this point have accepted that their job is not investigative journalism. Their job is online influencing. So their goal is to play to an audience. It's not to expose the truth. It's not to dig into stories that no one else is willing to look into. None of this is what Alex Jones and Marjorie Taylor Greene and now Thomas Massie and Candace Owens do. Their job is to impress their audience. I'll go back to this just for 1 second, because it's say it's not worth $1 billion a day. I mean, that's your opinion. I don't know if it stops Iran in its track, it's worth more than $1 billion a day. If it's ineffective, it's not worth $10 a day. I think that the amount spent on a war is always going to be determined by its outcome and whether it was worth it or not, as opposed to looking at it 30 or 60 days after it began and go, oh my God, this is so expensive, it's not worth it. I think that the results are what's going to determine what's worth anything. So I don't accept the fact that it's just not worth it because it's got a high price tag right now. In the end, it could wind up making us billions upon billions of dollars in new energy and reconstruction contracts that are far outweigh the $1 billion a day that we spent. Could be that, again, the mullahs remain in charge, nothing happens, it all goes to shit, and it wasn't worth $10. So I don't think that can really be evaluated until after it's over. But let's get into this little weird thing that I tried to understand why it was bothering people so much at first. And then the more I looked into it, the more like it was really starting to bother me why people were making such a big, was such a big deal, is that, first off, let's look at the way that it's being framed. It's being framed as this is hidden in some technology bill that has to pass so that it can be done without anyone noticing. Just so you know, it was debated in committee openly and in public. It's been posted to the internet for over a week now. It will be posted right up until it's voted on or until amendments are offered. There's nothing being hidden about this. And it's not even hard to find. Like, it's within the first 40 pages of the National Defense Authorization Act. So it says United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. The Secretary of Defense shall designate an executive agent, as such term is defined in the Department of Defense Directive, responsible for synchronizing cooperative efforts between the United States and Israel to expand and accelerate bilateral defense technology research, development, testing, evaluation, integration, and industrial cooperation. By identifying jointly developed or Israeli origin technologies with operational utility for potential integration into United States systems and programs of record. Ensuring collaborative research initiates involving government, private sector, and academic institutions in the United States and Israel is done in a manner that protects sensitive technology and information and the national security interests of the United States and Israel. I didn't take down your comment. I'm not even looking. I'm looking at comments in a program. So I can't even see what comments or where you're writing them. I only see them coming up in the program I used to stream. So I don't know what you're trying to say. You know what? I'll be nice. Let me go see if it's something I can see. Let's see. Real quick. I don't see any comment past like the $1 billion a day, and then you're complaining that the comment's not there. So I don't know what it is that you're complaining about. But I'm not erasing anything. I don't even have the ability from where I am, so I apologize. But okay, so the thing this is being sold as at this point is that the Israeli military and the American military are becoming integrated, meaning that one relies on the other and the other relies on the other. So that in a sense they're now so connected that they can never be challenged. This is absolute nonsense. And just so you know, this technology cooperation initiative exists for Australia. It exists for every member of NATO. It exists for several Western nations that are not part of NATO. It exists for all of the Arab countries that are allies with the U.S. This has nothing to do with integrating the two armies. What it has to do with is, one example is when the F-35 flies, it gathers real-time data in what it's doing, in ways it attacks, in ways that it maintains its stealth. That information is stored on onboard computers and uploaded in real time to servers that help direct the rest of the fleet with information that could be helpful. What this is saying is that those different types of technologies will be continuously integrated so that there's no disruption in the flow of information back and forth between what technologies Americans and Israelis both use. Then it's asking to identify Israeli origin technologies. I mean, do I really have to explain why they would want to do that? There's been about 36 Israeli technologies that have been integrated from Israel into the United States because they were developed in Israel. The Iron Dome being a huge part of it, the David Sling anti-missile shield, the Arrow missile, the Sparrow missile, all of these things have been integrated already, but were developed in Israeli countries. America is basically saying what they would like to do is be able to contribute to that research either through personnel, materials, or money, and therefore make them joint projects. Like, this is not odd. None of this is odd in any way, shape, or form. It's actually incredibly common. And then it says ensuring collaborative research initiatives involving government, private sector, and academic institutions in the United States and Israel. What's wrong? Like, I still haven't been able to explain to anyone what's wrong with collaborative research. If one institution is researching something and there's an expertise in another university, why wouldn't you want them to work together to develop the best product? Our last major product, the F-35, was developed with the help of 12 different countries. And I might add, didn't work until Israel got involved and added its own avionics program. So this idea that people like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey says, if the provision in the NDAA to integrate, synchronize the U.S. and Israeli militaries makes it out of committee, I'll offer an amendment to strip it from the bill on the floor. We are a sovereign country. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene writes, Section 224 of the 2027 NDAA integrates the U.S. military with the Israeli military. This is what complete capture of a foreign government looks like, and there hasn't been a single shot fired. This is why, by far, the dumbest comments that I've ever seen. And because they're so stupid, even though I can accept that Marjorie Taylor Greene is pretty dumb, I still can't imagine that they don't know what they're saying is wrong. So, and they don't know, they absolutely know that they're trying to drum up lunacy on these kinds of things. Um, I'll look you up on. You could just look me up on Discord. I think it's Halsey Media or Halsey. I haven't used Discord in so long. Hold on, let me see what my name is even there. Hold on. What is it? I think it's just Halsey English is my name on Discord. Send me a whatever, and I'll be happy to respond. But again, I think that when you look at things like the NDAA and the way that it's being sold as some kind of owned capture of the Israeli government of the American government by the Israelis, it's not only dishonest, it's stupid. Like, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever why there's anybody in the Department of Defense or the American people that wouldn't want this. If there's a technology that's out there that can help, if there's data that's being collected by electronic systems that can be shared and that helps our military to try in some way, shape, or form to justify not using it is fool's errand. It's like straight up retarded. So I don't understand why people feel the need to do this unless obviously they're being paid to influence. These are people that are being paid to drive people crazy on X and to raise the specter of some boogeyman that doesn't really exist. Okay. Again, we'll get a little better at this as we go because the format is new to me and I'm just starting it out. We're also going to have some guests on the show that we're going to be using to talk about current events. Please use my Patreon or my Subscribestar if you want to support my work, or use the Super Chat feature if you have any pertinent questions you want to ask for this one or next one, or to suggest any topics. You can find me on Discord. You can find me on Twitter if you just want to have a conversation, but I do appreciate it, and I hope to see everybody tomorrow at 10 in the morning for episode 3. Thank you very much.